So here is the answer. You ever hear when people say, well, what about October 7th? What about October 7th? Yeah, how about started on October?
What about January 6th?
What about October 7th? That's what they say all the time, right? So here's the perfect response to that. A reporter asked them,
what about October 7th? What about October 8th? What about October 9th? What about October 10th? What about October 11th? What about October 12th? What about October 13th? What about October 14th? What about October 15th? What about October 16th? What about October 17th? What about October 18th? What about October 19th? What about October 20th? What about October 21st? What about October 22nd? Let me finish the question. Let me finish answering. What about October 23rd? What about October 24th? What about October 25th? What about October 26th? What about October 27th? What about October 28th? What about October 29th? What about October 30th? What about October 31st? What about November 1st? What about
No, let me finish answering you.
Let me finish answering. So to me, that's the ultimate response, rebuttal to what about October 7th? You can't, as Nietzsche said, be careful not to, when fighting monsters, that you don't become a monster yourself. If you gaze into the abyss, make sure that the abyss will gaze back into you.
Well, how come we couldn't just win in Afghanistan and Iraq by blowing up every? I mean, we kind of did.
We kind of did,
but we lost.
Again, Israel's not going to win this.
Why didn't we put a siege and starve them until they give up the Taliban to us?
For every baby you kill, for every head of a baby you blow off, you're going to create at least one more person who's committed to fighting you for the rest of their life. So anyway, that to me, that's the perfect. So there is this idea that if we just bomb enough, we'll have peace. That's not how it's going to work. But let me bring in Keaton. Keaton, what do you say?
No, I mean, that's a great answer. He could have also, I mean, this would have been a much longer answer, but he could have also gone, what about October 6th? What about October 5th? What about October 4th? Gone all the way back.
You're a Hamas
1948.
apologist.
Because, well, yeah, that's
it was
what they would call you.
unprovoked.
But as Norm Finkelstein says, as many people have said, Gaza is an open-air concentration camp. And so you give people an option to either rot and die for the crime of having been born into an open-air concentration camp or to revolt. Now, this is the new safe and effective line that you have to say on YouTube, right? This is the new thing. I don't celebrate or glorify the death of anyone. That's not about that. And in all seriousness, I'm not just saying that for YouTube. I'm saying that because I believe all violence is, obscene. I think all war is horrible. But to call this unprovoked is just nonsense. And so, yeah, what about October 6th? What about October 5th? What about 2022, 2021? You can go all the way back.
I'm pretty Buddhist about it.
This was a revolt by an imprisoned population. And so to me, it falls to Israel that they created these circumstances where a revolt like this was inevitable, because the only other option people had was to just rot and die. Now, once again, that's not to say that what happened on October 7th should be glorified or celebrated. I do not believe that. And I believe that it does create a downward spiral. I said on the day of, this is going to be the end of Gaza. This is an extinction level event now, because Israel is going to respond exactly the way they did. I saw this coming as soon as the news broke. But Israel created the circumstances where this was bound to happen at some date. So that date is the date that the media is going to focus on. What about October 7th? What about October 7th? As this guy said, what about everything that's happened since? I would add, what about everything that happened before?
You know what I didn't see coming? That it would take them 7 hours to respond when it did finally happen.
I forgot to bring that up last night at the show, too.
It's kind of odd. 7 hours in tiny Israel, the most drivable across the whole thing, compared to...
The border's about 2 blocks long, and somehow they didn't have anybody there stationed. They were all on vacation in the West Bank or something like that.
I remember in 9/11, it took the first responders over 7 hours.
Well, just like in January 6th, there were cops that got to the Capitol from Pennsylvania or from New Jersey.
I forgot,
faster than it took the cops from the Capitol to get there. in D.C. Their cops got from New Jersey to January 6th to Capitol faster than the National Guard got there that were inside D.C.
The most surveilled.
So what that tells you is that that was a setup, just like October 7th was most likely. If it wasn't set up, it was allowed to happen.
Somebody said release the Kraken is what I think.
And a lot of people make that same comparison to 9/11. Why were these planes allowed to fly around for hours? It was over an hour. These planes were hijacked and there were no fighter jet scrambled to get them. Am I wrong about this? Correct me if I'm wrong. Keaton, do you know anything about this, or do you care?
No, I don't think I haven't heard anything opposite that.
I didn't know that, but I've heard much worse than that before they even got on the plane. Also, we had the story. It's the stuff that's open, that's not top secret now, is already real bad and incriminating for intelligence community.
Well, everybody knows they blew up Building 7 now. There's no denying that. But they denied it for a long time, even though the guy who owned the building was on videotape saying we made the decision to pull the building, which is code for we were going to blow it up. And he said that. Go ahead.
All these Bush cabinet guys, I think it was Ashcroft, Rumsfeld, I forget who else. They were on that. They were signatories to that document, Project for a New American Century, that came out in the 90s.
Yes.
Where they said they wanted to attack Iraq, but that it would be impossible to garner support to do so absent a cataclysmic or catastrophic event, i.e. a new Pearl Harbor. I am paraphrasing very closely to the exact text. 9 months after they took power, I'll say that for YouTube, that very event happened. And in between that time, there was a memo saying bin Laden determined to attack inside the United States using airplanes. So do I believe that those memos were ignored by accident and for no reason? No, I don't.
Also, I got a lot of empathy for October 7th because I was there for 9/11. So I know exactly how crazy that feels for something like that to happen. It's just that now I got 20 years of hindsight. Well, if another 9/11 happens, which it did, I'm going to act like the same idiot as the first 9/11 for a place I don't live. Right. It's just like the same exact mistakes we're all going to do, but like worse.
Well, that's exactly what you heard from certain circles, and was it our government who said no? Who said it? Some very high profile person said Israel shouldn't make the same mistakes after October 7th that the United States made after 9/11. That may have I'm not sure. I don't think that Obama said that. But there's some very high-profile person said, we reacted in rage to 9/11 in a way that made problems worse. We caution Israel against doing the same thing.
I hope their agent dropped them, whoever they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I'm still waiting to see if Anna Kasparian is going to quit her agency, UTA, because they're now canceling people and firing.
Right, they canceled Sarandon.
They canceled Sarandon over her views. Now, Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur have the exact same views as Susan Sarandon. You would think out of just consistency and solidarity.
Solidarity, yeah.
You would think that they would walk away from their agency. That's not happening. That hasn't happened. That's not happening. I don't think she's even acknowledged that. Well, I actually did go back and I watched her. They covered Susan Sarandon being dropped from UTA. It was her and Johnny Iderola, who was also a shill for the War Machine. They didn't mention one time that Anna was with UTA, that she's represented by them, and that she'll be leaving that agency over on principle. Didn't come up. I watched the whole segment. They didn't mention it.
Yeah, usually you would give a full disclosure, by the way, I'm repped by.
Yeah, by the way, I'm repped by the same horrible agency that's doing this to Susan Sarandon. But they got to practice all the moral outrage without actually having to do anything that backs it up. It's that kind of inconsistency you'll only get from the Young Turks. Anna Kasparian and Johnny Iderola. Shill.
Every time I read UTA, I want to say UTI. Am I alone in that? Or
no, I always think that too.
Do you trip over that too?
I always want to bring some cranberry juice down there.
What's UTI? I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I always tempted to say UTI.
Oh, no, I'm never. Isn't that funny? I'm never. No.
She's dropped by UTA. Tell her to get some cranberry juice.
Yeah. But I'll tell, but if they want to rep me, they can contact me, info@jimmydore.comedy.com. We're doing live comedy shows in Oxnard, California, Venice, California, Palmdale, California, Omaha, Nebraska, Des Moines, Milwaukee, Lansing, Michigan, Bend, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, and Boston. Plus, we're going to put a date in Edmonton, Canada, plus Vancouver. See ya. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets.